Hi, everyone, and welcome to this event of the 2Rivers Festival. And big thanks to GCAT for all of the work they've done to pull this very creative presentation together out of the box, because it's not at all being able to be done the way that it was originally managed and imagined. My name's Arlene, and I'm the host today for this 2Rivers Festival. And I just wanted to say a little bit about the festival, and that this is our 9th year of running the festival. The festival is designed as a way to engage our community with our beautiful rivers in this town. The thing and the reason why we all live here is because of our rivers. It's our most important ecological, cultural, and it's like sort of the center and the heart of our community. And yet it's been my experience sometimes as I'm speaking in schools that some parts of our community aren't really even familiar or aware that we have these rivers. And so we designed this festival to have all sorts of interesting different kinds of events that will get people close to the river's edge. And our theory of change goes a little something like this: that we protect what we love. And so if we can bring more and more of our community together around our rivers, we will develop a sense of care and stewardship for them. And hopefully that translates to an increased health and vitality for our rivers and all of the wildlife and all of us who depend on those for so many things. I want to send a particular thanks out to all of the advertisers for this festival. The advertisers that some of them you can see on the screen, and I'm also going to show a next screen here. These are organizations or local businesses who are committed to the same values that we are. And, it's because of their support and sponsorship that we're able to host this event for free and make all of the events of the festival available and accessible to our community for free. Particular thanks out to the Guelph Outdoor School this year, who was our festival sponsor. And even though we've had to completely reimagine the way this festival was done, we still want to just give them a shout out and invite you all to consider, if you're in need of beer in Guelph, support these local beer companies or all of the other organizations and businesses that you'll see on your screen here. Yeah, it's kind of funny this year. We've all had to reimagine how everything is running. But the very day that all the announcements were made for the closures and the need for social distances was the same day that 5,000 of our already printed festival guides arrived on our doorstep. And so we knew we had to get creative, and we did. Our steering committee really pulled together, and we got really creative about how we could still deliver this festival, still make meaningful use of these advertising dollars for those companies and organizations that have put their time and money into investing in this. And I also want to send a massive and huge shout out to all of the host organizations that are hosting an event in this. It was way above and beyond for each of them to kind of pull together to find a way to host an event that was not how it was originally intended. And I know most of these folks are doing so as volunteers, and it just shows the tremendous commitment that we have in this community to the love and care for our rivers. And for this event, I want to send a huge thanks out to GCAT. And here we have Laura Brown, who's going to be doing this presentation. And for all of you, I want to send my apologies too. We had this event scheduled last week, and many of you showed up at the right time to go on this event. And because of unforeseen circumstances, we weren't able to run it at that time. And so apologies, none of you could see this in its live version, but Laura and I are recording it today, and we're going to share it out with you all. And I'm sure she'd be happy to answer any of your questions going forward. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Laura and GCAT, and I'm going to stop my share here. And I'm going to invite Laura to be a host. And welcome, Laura, and thanks for all your efforts to pull this together.
Well, thank you, actually. And I'm really excited about sharing my view of the rivers. And I really liked that introduction. And I think, all of us, if we spend more time by these rivers, you get to see all of these changes and things that are going on. And even while I was putting this presentation together, I noticed changes. Like, you know, one time there's no tadpoles, and the next time in the exact same spot, a day later, there are just thousands of them. So the way that I organize this is that I'm going to do a PowerPoint presentation, and I've embedded video clips and photographs and things for the 10 stops that I've made on this river tour. And so we'll be able to view those today, and you'll see all of that. But also what you'll be getting is a ride with GPS file, and you'll be able to upload that to your phone, and then you can follow along and go to all the stops that we're talking about today on this presentation, and you'll be able to experience the same places that we talk about for yourself and make your own observations there. I do have a warning for you though, and that is that this is the first time that I used my GoPro, and it was kind of like a good reason to get a GoPro to do this. So I apologize in advance for the overuse of the following words: pan or panning. Who knew that I used that so much? And of course the ums and ahs in my video recordings, because I made a lot of those, I realized as I was editing. So who am I? Well, I am a geomorphologist, and geomorphology is geo means earth and morph means form, and I'm a member of GCAT, I'm on the board, and I also like to ride camels if I get that opportunity. When I'm not riding my bike, I am a teacher. I'm an instructor up at the University of Guelph in the geography department. And I also lead tours like this for 2Rivers or for local environmental groups or naturalist groups. So that's my background. So let's begin our tour. So as I said, I've made a lot of video clips, and I'm just going to let video clip Laura take over from now on.
On today's tour, we're going to look at the geography of the 2 rivers in Guelph. And geography is a science that asks what is where and why. And those are the questions we'll be answering. We'll also be finding some landforms, and I'll talk about some river processes. And so I'm really excited to get started with this today. We also have a beautiful day today, and as was mentioned in the description, there'll be a map so that you can follow along and you can go to these places on your own and experience them at your leisure. I just wanted to point out a few safety things. I've got my helmet, and my bike is over here, so we'll just pan over here while I'm talking. And so you want to check that your bike is in good working order before you leave. You want to take some water, you want to take some bug spray, and some sunscreen. Those are just basic things, of course. Whether you're doing this on foot or by bike, remember that it is tick season, and so you want to make sure that you check for ticks after. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun. So let's get started. Hi, here we are at our first stop, and this is Howitt Creek. And Howitt Creek actually runs underground for most of its course. It comes out at the surface here, and as we'll see, it flows downstream and will flow down and join the Speed River, and we'll see that at the next stop. So there's a number of reasons that I wanted to stop at this creek, because we can see a lot of the things that we would see in the larger river, but of course we can get up much closer and we can actually see the rocks at the bottom of this river. So just to orient yourselves here, this is Howitt Park. You can see that it's a large bowl shape, and I'll just take you over there so you can see that. You can see it's a large bowl-shaped park, and this bowl-shaped park was actually a quarry at one point, and now it's been redesigned, and it's actually a stormwater management flood area. And so it's been designed so that when we get the intense rainstorms that we've been getting over the past few years, and we're going to continue to get those with climate change, this is an area where this creek can swell and absorb that flood water at its peak before it goes through neighborhoods and damages neighborhoods, but also gets into the Speed River and increases the flow in the Speed River. So it serves two functions. Rivers perform two functions. They carry water and drain the landscape and carry water down into larger rivers, which eventually dump into oceans. But they also carry sediment, and that is another of their functions. And a lot of people don't think about the sediment function. Now, in this small creek, I can demonstrate how sediment is carried. There's three different forms, or three different ways that sediment is carried. It's carried in solution, and so that's really chemistry. So the rocks in the Guelph area have a lot of calcium carbonate and lime and things in them, and so when those rocks are exposed to water, it starts to dissolve and break down that rock and break down those cementing materials and release those chemicals. And so in our water, that's why our water is so hard in Guelph and why you need to have a water softener in Guelph, is because our water is draining through so much of this limestone and dullstone. So that's one way. So it can be carried in solution, and that's chemical. The other way that it can be carried is in suspension. And so I'm just going to walk up the creek a little bit here, and there's a deeper part where a dog was just visiting. And so if any of you are neighbors in this area, you'll know that this is very popular for dogs. And so when the dog jumped in here, you can see that the water itself is not as clear as it is where it was down in the stone area there. And that's because the dog has whipped up some of the lighter sediment, the muds, the clays, the things like that. And so now you can see it's barely flowing. You can see that material flowing on the top, but that's carrying material in suspension. And so these are very small, like clays, muds, things like that, that are carried in suspension. Often things that are carried in suspension are only deposited into the river or churned up by something actually disturbing the bed and releasing those materials, getting them back up into the flow and carried, or they're washed off from the surface when you have surface runoff in a big storm or something like that. The last one, which we can see here, is not occurring in this light flow, and that is bed load. And bed load is when you have rocks that are rolling and bouncing along the bottom. They can be dragged along the bottom. They can hop in saltation along the bottom. And these tend to be stone-sized, coarse sand-sized, things like that. And so bed flow is, or bed load is when you have the rocks actually in contact with the bed. So we've just left Howitt Creek. We've come back out of that flood protection park area, and now we're about to head down to the main channel of the Speed River. And no matter what mode of transport you use when you're taking this tour and going from the Howitt River stop down to the Speed River stop, I want you to think about the landscape and think about it in general terms. Is it flat? Is it hilly? Are we going up? Are we going down? Any observations, because that's really what geography is about. It's about taking the observations and then coming up with an explanation of why we have those features where. So geography is a science that asks, Why is what where? Those are the three key questions that geography uses and that we're going to use on this trip. So, without any further delay, let's go. Here we are at the car park, and you can hear the Hanlon roaring behind me. We're looking at the gardens here along the Howitt Creek, and I just wanted to point out this concrete conduit that carries runoff from the parking lot here, with all of its oil and anything else that has been left on the surface of the parking lot gets washed down and is funneled in through this concrete conduit or channel to dump directly into the creek. And it's these kinds of conduit that speed overland flow into the creek system when we have a storm. Now, I'm underneath the bridge here, and you can see that you've got this channel that comes in through this baffle here, and then you've got the main channel with a bit of a weir over there. We have some nice flow today, and I'm just going to see if I can take a peek at that in this location. So, walking down the bank here, yes, we have some nice flow moving along, very quick, and you can see we've got a little bit of a babbling brook up at that end. Not an official term. Here I am in the middle of Howitt Creek, and Howitt Creek is a tributary of the Speed River. And so if you can look down through this tunnel here and on beyond that bridge that's in the distance, that is the main channel, and that's the mouth of Howitt Creek, where it empties into the main channel of the Speed River. And that's where we're going to be heading to next. Something. A little fish. Can you see that? Got a little fish. That's pretty cool. He's got his eyes on something. All right, so I'm just going to pan away from the heron reluctantly, but I want you to look out over the water here. And first of all, you're going to see all of these bulrushes, and these bulrushes are growing in this swampy area that we find in this part of the main channel. Oh, there was a big fish that just flapped over there. And one of the things that I want you to notice as we look out beyond that and beyond a bit of kind of like algae growth and things on the surface is that you can see that there's a buildup of sediment, and it's very shallow going out from where I'm standing here. And that's where this heron is fishing, and where there's some habitat here for these types of birds. But what this sediment has been deposited here by the Howitt creek as it's come out, and I'm going to take you over now to the mouth of the Howitt Creek, and all of this sediment has been deposited, and it's like a delta. It's a mini delta that has formed here, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that when I take you over to the mouth there. So that's it for now. We are at the mouth of Howitt Creek, and as you can see, we still have that channelization and that concrete that's trying to force this channel to stay in place and not migrate as it makes its way out to the main stream. And I'll just pan across here and you'll see the main stream. As I pan over here, you can see that edge, so it's very shallow along here, and then as I pan over you can see that it drops off, and that maybe that mallard duck will illustrate the point for me, that he's still on the flats, and as he gets to that edge there, now he's in the main channel. Not quite, keep going. Oh, is he going to stick to the flats? Anyway, now he's in the main channel. Where it's deeper. And so all of this sediment that makes up the shallows, and you can see it goes up and is exposed in that area there, that's all been dumped by Howitt Creek. So as much as Howitt Creek in the flow levels that we're seeing today doesn't look like it would carry that material as bed load, at some times the flow is strong enough to move all of these rocks and move all of those rocks that are down there from the Howitt Creek area and deposit them on the edge of this mini delta here. Deltas form when a channel meets another body of water. Usually it's a still body of water like a lake or an ocean, but it can also be a larger body of water like a river when that river is moving slower. Okay, I made a little pit stop along the way. I'm shooting downstream right now, and so that's again going towards Cambridge, and then where the Speed River will eventually dump out into the Grand River. But I'm just going to pan over here, and I'm sure that you can hear that water rushing. This is one of the many weirs that have been set up along the river channel, and it's a way again of controlling the flow, of channeling the flow. You can see here that there are notches here where they could actually slide things in to block off the flow, and then instead of going over these thinner bits as the water is tumbling over now, they'd be forced to go over those bigger bits. You can see that as we're closer to the shore here, that the flow is slower. It's not going as rapidly over as it tumbles down. It's kind of excavated into the ground rock below, and you can see that it's tumbling around and turning around in there. As we go towards the far bank there, you can see it shooting through there, and then you get those standing waves. So about 1, 2, 3, 4 slots over, you can see the water shooting over and then curling back up. And those are standing waves, and that happens when the water is very turbulent. If you're a kayaker, you're aware of Oregon whitewater rafting, you're aware of that kind of water. It's showing that there are deep parts and shallow parts of the riverbed itself, forcing that standing wave where you have the water temporarily going in the opposite direction. So I just wanted to point that out, and then pan upstream where we're going to cross that bridge and go across to the other side. So So I just found this cluster of tadpoles in the river and thought I'd point them out. And so the river, of course, flows and carries water, drains the land, carries sediment off the land, and it also serves as habitat, as we talked about before. And in this case, it's a nursery for little frogs or toads. Okay, so if you can see there through the green and down to the Speed River right now, and I'm going to pan back and we can see this building, and you can see here with my bike for scale, that was the height of floodwaters associated with a 1948 flood. If we go a little bit higher, we have something that's called a 100-year flood. And that is a statistic measure that puts out the return time of a flood of this height would happen once every 100 years. Not that if it's happened one year, it can't happen the next, but the frequency of that flood is not very frequent, that it would happen once every 100 years. And I'm going to start again at the actual height of the Speed River, and now I'm going to pan up, because the only way that you can really experience the height of the river flooding that was associated with Hurricane Hazel is by looking way up, just like the Friendly Giant used to say, and see where it says REG and it has the flood line. That's the height of the Speed River flooding here after Hurricane Hazel. Okay, so here we are at the Guelph Dam, and you can see that the dam's gates are closed actually, so it's limiting the flow through those kind of V-cut shapes as it's flowing downstream towards Cambridge. And as I pan upstream here, you can see that this area is completely flooded. Often when you come past here, there's like wide mud flaps and you won't be able to see the river is much further away. But right now we're right at the bank. And so that's because of the control of this dam. And so I talked about the Hurricane Hazel event, and it was post-Hurricane Hazel that places like the Grand River Conservation Area, the Don Valley Conservation Area, all of those became responsible for flood mitigation. And so dams were put in, like this one here, to help control river flow and try to prevent such a massive disaster from happening again. Up at Guelph Lake, the reservoir was developed as part of that project, and so if you continued up the Speed River past where we're going to go today and go up to that dam which has created Guelph Lake, that's all part of this flood control that was put in post-Hurricane Hazel. So I'm going to just pause here. Oh, one other thing that I wanted to show here is if you look at the water here, the color of the water is kind of like a brown color. However, it's clear, so you know that material is not being carried in suspension. Oh, and here's a little toad hanging out. That it's not being carried in suspension. What's happening here is that we have tannins that are released from the leaves, and you can see that leaf matter on the bottom. You can see how slow the flow is along this bank, but that leaf matter isn't moving at all. But much like your tea, the tannins are leached out of the leaves and stain the water, and so the water becomes this brown color. It's not muddy per se, but what it is it's carrying the tannins in solution. So again, going back to the three modes of transport: bed load, if the material was moving and bouncing along the bed; suspension would be muddy water where you couldn't see through the bottom; or we have a solution where we have the tannins, and then of course the limestone and things that we would have in Guelph. Okay, and I think I was hoping that toad would come back, but I guess not. Okay, so here we are at the boathouse, and you can see a fellow, and I just had some footage of him paddleboarding, sitting down and docking his paddle boat and coming in. And I just wanted to point out that the rivers in this city not only are habitat for wildlife, but also serve as recreation for people, and have in the past as well. And as I pan up here, we're at the confluence of the Speed River. So the Speed River is flowing down from Guelph Lake, past the dam and through the city, and comes and meets the Aramasa. So the Speed River is coming underneath that covered bridge, and the Aramasa is going up, and you can kind of see that swampy land kind of on the edge of the bank of the Aramasa, and it continues up to Eden Mills and then on to Rockwood Conservation Area, and then through Rockwood and continues further north. And so this is the confluence. So the confluence is where two rivers meet, and these two rivers meet here and then continue downstream to join with the Grand River at Cambridge. The boathouse here is a historic building, and in the 1800s rented canoes and paddle boats and things for people to take them, particularly up the Aramasa River. And there were places up that stream where they had campgrounds, and they had a place that was called Paradise Island, and it was a large or a very popular recreation area. And so they'd go camping for the weekend and have dances and all sorts of things. And so the two rivers in Guelph have historically been a place for recreation that the citizens of Guelph have used throughout time, and we still use them today. So I just wanted to point that out and give you a little history lesson. We're going to go over to the bridge, and a little bit on that bridge. It was built by some timber framers who came in and built it using old-time methods, and so there are no nails used in the construction of the bridge. They used pegs and old-style methods to build that structure for us. So we're going to continue over that way, and then we're going to follow the Speed River a little bit through town to where Guelph originated, and terminate our tour there. So let's go. So here we are on the wooden bridge, and I'll just pan over so you can see these big pegs that make up the bridge, and you can see kind of the water reflecting off of the top of it. It's quite an amazing structure. So I want to encourage you here to take a peek out through the bridge here, because this is really the only time that we get to see the river from above. And again, just to reiterate, we don't see any of those rocks moving on the bottom. We can see through to the bottom, so that's good. And we can see sometimes fish. I don't see any right now, but often you can spot some fish here. And actually, if we go back, so again, just to orient yourselves, going up that way is the Aramasa. This is at the confluence of the Aramasa and the Speed River. The boathouse is over there. And the Speed River, it becomes the Speed River at this confluence when they come together, and then it continues down to Cambridge. So I'm just going to take you over to this side. Of course, these people are fishing, much like our heron that was fishing before. And this is going back into the city towards downtown. We're going to continue along this way and go to where the city of Guelph was founded. So take some time on this bridge, maybe get yourself an ice cream, and enjoy yourselves. Okay. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm angling this so that we can see the waterfall here. And so this is the Speed River. We're right across from the Spring Hill Mill Distillery, and we're also right across from Allen's Mill. And so when the settlers came to Guelph, and this was right around the area, this waterfall area where Guelph was decided that they were going to form a city here. Allen's Mill is an example of the mills, and here's a big mill wheel here, that used the stream power to grind wheat, to run machinery, do all sorts of things. That I wanted to show while we're here is you can see the sedimentary rock. And so if you look underneath this trestle bridge, you can see the sedimentary rock on the bank on the other side. And we know it's sedimentary rock because we have those successive layers that have been laid down. Above that, you can see that there's been something laid down. And so just one more look at the waterfall. So a waterfall in geomorphology is called a nick point. And a nick point is any abrupt drop in the stream bed. So you can have rapids that are nick points or waterfalls that are nick points. Waterfalls, of course, are much higher, or elevation of the drop is much more steep, and so you get the falls. But you can get nick points in riffles, which are deposits of rock, and then pools on the other side. You can see as the water is flowing, coming down from the waterfall, and that waterfall, of course, it has been engineered now. There is a natural nick point in this river, and it would have been a natural waterfall when John Galt first founded Guelph. But you can see that the pool that water is rushing into has a recirculation set. So you can see, if you follow the bubbles, that they're actually recirculating in that pool and going against the dominant flow, which is downstream, and actually flowing upstream. And so that's a flow pattern that we get in fast flows, and there's obviously a pool that is formed there where that recirculation cell swirls around. The last thing that I will end our tour with, and thank you so much for coming. I hope that you've enjoyed it. If you're not a GCAT member now, I highly encourage you to do so. I hope that you enjoyed our trip and that you will join me again for another trip sometime. Thank you for 2Rivers for encouraging us to join you and to put this together. And I hope that everyone enjoys the 2Rivers and the recreation and riding their bikes in Guelph. To become a member and to find out more about what GCAT does, GCAT stands for Guelph Coalition for Active Transportation. You can go to our website. So just look up GCAT, GCAT. That's it for now. Have a great day, and I hope you enjoyed the tour. I'm going back to fix gear for a beer. Bye.